Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Silvia Pattuelli. Together with Andrea Nurcis, who's here with us today, and the rest of our team, we grow organic vegetables in Romagna, not far from Ravenna. None of us come from a farming family. This is a job and a passion that we actively chose to embark on just 11 years ago. We wanted to prove that it's possible to grow beautiful, healthy vegetables using agroecological methods, regenerating the soil without using any animal-based inputs. Our farm covers 7 hectares. To give you a picture, we have 2 hectares of vineyards, 2 hectares of orchard, which is currently fallow, 1 hectare of alfalfa, and actually less than 1 hectare dedicated to the vegetable garden itself. The rest is wild, woodlands and hedgerows. Actually, our very first step was to recreate a sanctuary for biodiversity. We planted hedges and small groves where human access is strictly forbidden. Our goal is to bring wilderness and life back to an environment where it had virtually disappeared. Here you can see the 2 pictures of us in 10 years on the left when we planted all these trees and nowadays hedgerows. When we first started farming, our focus was on fruit production. We sold our harvest to a large wholesale cooperative. But the reality was harsh. We were paid just a few cents per kilo, often with a delay of a full year after the harvest. Not only that, but the cooperative would deduct a percentage for waste, fruit that we weren't paid for at all. And what was this waste? It was simply fruit with a slightly different shape or color, perhaps just because a leaf had shaded it while it was ripening. After a few years, we realized this was really unsustainable. Our revenues didn't even cover our production costs. This is the state of agriculture today. Small farms like ours have razor-thin margins and simply cannot survive. In fact, the trend in Italy is shifting towards massive land ownership, vast monocultures where huge machinery is used to cut fixed costs. We faced a clear choice: close down or transform. We chose the second path and founded a CSA, Community Supported Agriculture, called Terrestra. We left fruit farming behind and expanded the vegetable garden, which is now the heart of our work. For those who are not too familiar with the CSA model, think of it as a long-term partnership, usually for a whole farming year, that connects a group of people who want to eat organic vegetables directly with the farmers who grow them. Here how it works. These members help guarantee the farm's budget by paying a share up front. We calculate this share by taking the total estimated costs for the season, seeds, seedlings, taxes and labors, since there are 2 of us working full-time, and dividing it among all the members. The budget is completely transparent. Members can participate in every step of production and, of course, in the decision-making process, even joining us for sowing or other tasks. In this way, they share both the risks and the rewards. If it's a great year, we all benefit. But if a hailstorm hits, the harvest might be smaller for a few weeks. This shifts their role entirely. They stop being simple consumers and become co-producers, standing in solidarity with us. Because we plan our planting at the start of the year based on the exact number of members, we have zero waste. And we use no plastic. Members arrive, weigh their share, and put it into their own bags. Thanks to this process, the price of food isn't dictated by the external market, but by its real value. When we buy a salad at the store, we don't know the story behind it. Does the head of lettuce hide labor exploitation? Were pesticides used that polluted the groundwater or damaged the soil? And what about the carbon dioxide emissions? They are all hidden costs usually dumped on consumers, who are forced to choose based on the only info they have, the price tag. Here, members eat fresh, flavorful vegetables picked the same day. In return, they guarantee that the costs are covered. Just to give you an idea of our scale, right now we have 62 families picking up between 4 and 7 kilos of veggies every week with at least 7 different varieties. Even though we are in a small town full of supermarkets, we actually have a waiting list of people waiting to join. And it's all happened entirely through word of mouth. Every week, we harvest over 200 kilos of vegetables. We supplement what we don't grow directly, like potatoes and carrots, by trading with other local organic farmers. Producing healthy food is just as important as caring for our community. Let me give you an example. During the recent floods, when some of our members couldn't return to their homes, others opened their doors to host them. We even saw a spontaneous clothing drive to help them out. Now, for a number of reasons, which I'm happy to discuss later if you are interested, we operated at a loss this year. We sat down and discussed it together, and everyone stepped up. Some members brought friends into Terrestra to boost our revenues, while others organized fundraising dinners. This collective effort allowed us to keep working with peace of mind. You can see this spirit every Thursday. When people come to pick up their vegetables, they don't just leave. Small groups form, people chat, and many bring food and drinks to share. Building a community requires energy and constant investment, especially in today's divided and individualistic society. I believe that nourishing the community and not just the vegetables is our hardest task. But at the same time, when the community responds like this, we all feel safer. Before I move to the field and see how we grow the food for our members, do you have any questions about CSA? Okay, so let's move on. Doing this work and living alongside other farmers, I realized that agriculture, since its origins about 11,000 years ago, whether in the Fertile Crescent in China or India, has always been based on the same principle: domination. It occupied a space and systematically reduces its biodiversity to control it with the least amount of effort. If you look at agriculture landscapes today, you generally see monocultures. The hedgerows, which until a few decades ago defined farm boundaries and sheltered insects and birds, have been ripped out. To control nature, everything that interferes, everything that slows down efficiency and reduces profit must be eliminated. But this simplification creates dependency. Because the soil life is depleted, you need more fertilizers. Because nature predators are gone, you need pesticides. we did the opposite. The first thing we did was plant tall trees and flowering bushes, many of them thorny, to protect wildlife. We created 3,000 square meter woodland and enclosed the whole farm with mixed hedgerows. Next year, we will even add 2 small ponds. As complexity increased, insects returned. Then came the birds that had disappeared from the area. And eventually, larger animals arrived: fox, wolves, badgers, and roe deers. Complexity transforms the soil from an inert support into a nutrient factory. We experience the farm as a living single organism seeking for balance from the microscopic level to the macroscopic. Our approach is known as market gardening, and we use regenerative, stock-free techniques. The name market garden comes from the past. Historically, market gardens were small plots surrounding the cities designed to feed the local community with fresh food. Unlike large-scale farming, a market garden focuses on high quality and detail on a small scale. We don't measure our success in hectares, but in the health of every square meters of soil. We specifically use the word regenerative because our primary goal is to bring the soil back to life. We found that the land was not only depleted of available organic matter, but it was also in a state of anaerobiosis. Essentially, the soil was compacting and suffocating without oxygen. At the beginning, to understand the health of our soil, we relied on the teachings of the French botanist Gérard Dussert regarding bioindicator plants, what people call weeds. We are not enemies. They are not enemies to be blindly eliminated. They are messengers. A plant only grows where the soil conditions allow it to. So, by observing which plants appear naturally, we get precise diagnosis of our soil state. They tell us immediately if there is compaction, an excess of nitrogen, or a lack of organic matter. They guide our decisions before we even touch the ground. We know that seeds are, in essence, fertilized ovules lying in dormancy. But when does a seed decide to wake up? It only happens when very specific conditions are met. Therefore, if we can decode these waking triggers, we instantly get precise information about the current state of our soil. Finally, we use the term stock-free because we do not use any animal-based input at any stage of the production process. That means no manure, no chicken manure, and no worm castings. Our goal is simple: feed the soil microorganisms and they will feed the plants. From a technical point of view, we use permanent beds. They are standardized beds, 75 centimeters wide, 30 meters long. We plant at high density, so the leaves touch quickly, creating a living mulch that holds moisture and suppresses weeds. No heavy machinery. We don't use tractor. We use a 2-wheel tractor with a power harrow, and its horizontal movement doesn't compact the deep soil where roots need to grow. For deeper aeration, we use a manual tool called grelinette or rod. For crop rotation and cover crops, we use a 5-year rotation plan. Crucially, we dedicated 1 or 2 years entirely to cover crops or green manure. This means fertility is generated by photosynthesis right in the garden, not imported. We mix grasses for carbon, legumes for nitrogen, and brassicas to work the soil. When the cover crop is in bloom, we terminate it using a roller crimper. That is a heavy barrel, a drum, with metal blades welded into it. The blades are blunt, not sharp. If you cut the plant, if you mow, the plant senses it has been eaten and tries to grow back quickly. The roller crimper crushes the stem in multiple places, about every 10 to 15 centimeters. This snaps the vascular systems, the veins that carry the stem, the water and nutrients, without severing the stem completely. The plant stays anchored in the soil but dries out and dies. It forms a thick mat of dead mulch on top of the soil. If we can wait for another year, we add a light layer of wood chips to stimulate fungi, mycorrhizae, that help plants to defend themselves. But if we need to proceed with the planting, we use a silage tarp. The darkness stops regrowth, while the warmth and moisture activate earthworms and bacteria to digest the biomass. We then wait about 20 days before planting. This is crucial because decomposing plants release natural inhibitors that can block new seeds, and the heat generated could burn delicate roots. A note on compost. For years, we bought certified organic compost, but we found too much contamination. Plastic, fruit stickers, and tree ties. Even compostable bags often don't degrade fully in industrial cycles. We began composting our own wood chips sourced from the orchard. The goal is to build a stable, structured, and fungally dominated soil, effectively mimicking the natural processes of the forest floor. It is a long journey based on observation and exchanging experiences with other farmers. For example, we are members of the Veganic Network. It is a path filled with plenty of mistakes and also some success. But sometimes everything changes in an instant. In May 2023, in fact, the riverbank broke on the side opposite our garden, less than 300 meters from our home, while life on our side continued peacefully. On the other side of the river, the town was flooded and 2 people lost their lives. The water swept away everything in its path with terrifying forces. It carried trees and soil, but also a toxic mix, pesticides from farm depots, fuel and oil from gas stations, paints, livestock manure, and also animal carcasses. In our area, which sits 15 meters above sea level, the water rushed through destructively. But in the reclaimed lands, areas drained only a century ago and subject to land subsidence, the water stopped. Imagine an unprecedented volume of water caused by 2 nearby rivers bursting at once. In some places, it reached 1.5 meters high. Since drainage was impossible, the water stood stagnant for over 10 days, creating serious sanitary risks. When the water finally drained, the land remained like a swamp for weeks. It was June. Once it dried, it left behind a layer of compact clay sediment, up to 10 centimeters thick. This crust was so hard that the original soil underneath could no longer breathe or dry out. I was told that many farmers tried deep tilling to fix this, but the ground remained compacted and impermeable, and the pH levels rose significantly, making cultivation even harder. However, we saw a crucial difference. Soils rich in organic matter acted like a sponge and are slowing recovering their functionality. In contrast, soils depleted by conventional extractive agriculture remain lifeless and problematic. Of course, the entire summer harvest was lost, including rare heirloom varieties that few elderly local farmers were preserving. Since May 2023, our lives have changed. Every rainfall now brings anxiety and dread. And this is not just an Italian problem. Floods are a global reality. But looking specifically at Emilia-Romagna, the causes are clear. Riverbeds have become narrow to make space for buildings and industrial farming. This has led to riverbanks with unnaturally steep slopes and increased heights. And third, but not less important, the climate change. As you saw before, we live next to what we can call hanging rivers. The water flows several meters above the level of the towns. Here, the riverbed is about 4 meters higher than our garden. Narrow rivers, excessive bank slopes, and high levees make every storm potentially dangerous. Unfortunately, the current solutions are short-sighted patchwork measures responding to populist demands like cutting down riparian vegetation without any long-term global vision. So we have to ask, what is a river supposed to be? Whose needs must it satisfy? We recently organized a conference hosting geologists, fluvial ecologists, and ethologists. And what came out, no surprise, was that a river is a living entity. It needs its own space. It moves and shifts over time. It is not just a channel for water. A river is the fish. It is the mollusks living within it. It is its riparian vegetation. It is the mammals finding shelter there. And those who use the river as a natural highway. This realization that the river is a living subject with its own rights and not an object to be engineered, forces us to abandon the path of domination, and this brings us to the very heart of our project. Terrestra aims to bridge the daily labor in the fields, the material act of doing, with a new definition of being and coexisting on this planet. We made a concrete choice to practice agriculture without animal-based inputs. This is certainly a technical decision, but above all, it is a political and ethical one that aligns us with anti-speciesist thought. The principle is clear. We reject discrimination based on species, just as we reject racism or sexism. We recognize that non-human beings possess subjectivity, feelings, and consciousness. Therefore, we refuse to use them as simple resources, as tools, or as fertilizers. For us, the garden is not a site of extraction, but a place to create bonds and mutual aid and care among all species. To sum up, our work at Terrestra is a political act in an open field. We believe agriculture must fully enter the debate of contemporary thought. We are not simply growing tomatoes. We are cultivating a new way of dwelling on earth, one that recognizes that the shared life and interdependence of every single entity that makes up our common home. Thank you.